the very first tour I done as an 18-year-old, because the British Army don't send anybody on operations unless they're 18 or over. And because I was a junior soldier, I joined my battalion quite early. And so when my battalion first went to Northern Ireland, I had to wait a month until my 18th birthday, which really sort of, you know, upset me, because I wanted to be with my mates. I've just joined a battalion, all that sort of stuff. But I had to wait a week on what was called the rear party. And so literally on my 18th birthday, I'm on a Navy ferry boat that used to leave Liverpool docks into Belfast docks, where all the military, you know, all the armoured vehicles and soldiers and all that sort of stuff would get out into Belfast and then be moved to where they are. And my rifle company of my battalion, we was based in this place that was called Crossmaglen, which was a really sort of well-known area, a bit like Helmand Province will be known now about Afghanistan. Crossmaglen during that war was the place where everybody fought about. It was in a place called South Armagh, which was on the border, and at that time it was called bandit country, and no soldiers would travel in vehicles because of the improvised explosive devices, the IEDs, the very things that have killed soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq now, was happening in Northern Ireland. So the only way that you would move around the countryside, what's called the cuds, and do the border patrols and the ambushes and all that, would be on foot patrols, or helicopters would take you in and bring you out. And the only vehicles was 2 armoured vehicles, what we called cans, and very much like now, but that mesh over it, so when RPG rockets were fired, they would explode before it hit the armour. We had 2 of them, which were basically mobile gun platforms, because we had big 50 caliber machine guns on the cans, and they would only stay in the town and be used as fire support when we got involved in contacts. So very exciting for this 18-year-old soldier. Off I went. I got 50p extra a day, which was fantastic, because you save up about £1,000 on one of these tours. To get ripped off buying a second-hand car when you get back. And the more, sort of for me, immediately, the best thing about, you know, being on an operational tour was that you got soft toilet paper. Because when I was certainly a boy soldier and in the battalion, we used to get these squares that's like tracing paper, sort of toilet paper, which is the old cheap stuff. And then all of a sudden you got sort of, you know, soft toilet paper. So I thought it was all very, very exciting. You know, being on the first operational tour, 50p extra a day, and soft toilet paper, you know, loads of body armour, automatic weapons, fantastic. And it was literally, you know, 18 and a month or whatever it was, when I got involved in my first contact, you know, first firefight, which was at night time. I found it very, very exciting, because the contact was, there was quite a lot of distance, what we call standoff, so it wasn't as if it was close-up fighting. And so all the tracer was going off and helicopter gunship come in and all that sort of stuff. I thought it was great because I was relatively safe. So I've had my first gunfight, all that sort of stuff. Doing all the ambushes on the border, all that sort of stuff was brilliant. And it was only I was about 2 months into the tour where one of my own rifle platoon was killed. He was killed by an IED, which is an improvised explosive device. And at that time, the Provisional IRA used to put their flags up and nail them onto telegraph poles and onto buildings. And the policy was to take them down. And there's a guy called Nicky Smith who was a bit older than me. He was 19. Well, I was still 18. He was 19, and he was the guy whose job was to take these flags down, because he was trained to check to make sure they weren't booby trapped. So we got one of these cans, one of these armoured vehicles, to drive below the telegraph pole where this flag on a stick was hanging. And Nicky then jumped on top of the can and then done his checks. You know, he's done his search sort of checks before he pulled it down, and we were all around the can. And as he pulled the tricolour down, there was a mercury tilt switch. So basically, mercury conducts electricity, and it was in a test tube. So there was 2 connectors either end of the test tube, and as the wood got pulled, the mercury went down and made the connection, and it was an IED, because there was explosives in the telegraph pole. So Nicky Smith got blown up, and what happened, there was obviously a big explosion, and all of us in that surrounding area got covered in parts of Nicky Smith, dead. You know, he was sort of, you know, severed from the waist upwards. In fact, we never found his foot. we tried to get, to get hold of what was left of him, to get him into one of these poncho stretchers that we had. And I was flapping because I didn't know what to do. I was waiting for the platoon sergeant to tell me what to do, because up until then it was 50p extra a day and just having a cabbie at night time and enjoying it. And all of a sudden, you've got a mate who's dead, and we had to put him in a poncho and then run through this town across McGlen to try and get to the security force base, because the can driver, the guy who was driving this thing, and the machine gunner, they were also injured as well, because they were a certain amount of protection, but they had head injuries. And it was only then that I really realised that being a soldier wasn't about really 50p extra a day and soft toilet paper and having a good time, because actually people get killed. And for days I had because we had no sort of running water, that sort of stuff, or no facilities to change clothes. So for about 3 or 4 days before we got moved out of the security force base to another place to get new kit and everything, we was all covered in Nicky Smith's blood, and it's all sort of ingrained in it. So as a young soldier, that was the enduring sort of thing I had in my head about, that's what being a soldier, actually people get killed. So it all then started to become quite serious for me.